Thank you, everyone, for having me. So my talk is taking the scary out of VCPR. I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story about just kind of the road that our practice took. And the talk is taking the scary out of it. But to be frank with you, we were scared shitless. We started, listening to Phil. He was the champion for making us all aware and trying to educate us as a community about what type of changes that were going to happen on this December 1st, 2018. And it wasn't scared. We weren't scared because we were scared that we were out of compliance. We were scared for what that actually meant for our practice. So my main practice is Vet Agri Health Services, and that is a 7-doctor beef cattle only practice, okay? What we were expecting with these regulatory changes is what was going to happen to the 60 to 70% of producers that do not typically use veterinary services, and how they were going to get access to antimicrobials, and how were we going to address that, essentially being on the front line. So there is a large percentage of producers out there that had relied on going to farm stores, UFA, the co-ops of the world, and getting penicillins and tetracyclines and trying to treat the majority of diseases that they encountered without consultation of veterinarians. And they were no longer going to be able to do that. And we didn't really know what that was going to look like for our practice. So we did a lot of things. I would say about a year before the regulatory changes came in, we got really serious about what this was going to look like. And like all challenges, we made sure we had a plan. So first off, we got educated as to what the prescribing and dispensing guidelines were to make sure that we knew everything to a T. I would challenge anyone in this room to go against one of my technicians, Ashley, in a competition of knowing the VCPR and the prescribing and dispensing guidelines. We know that handbook to a T now because we had to make sure that we understood everything in order for us to be able to accurately assess how we were going to deal with this in terms of a business model or approach. So we got ourselves educated, and then we came up with this strategy. We had multiple meetings within our practice of how we were going to address this. We were expecting perhaps a drove of non-clients coming to our practice wanting access to antimicrobials, and we had to be able to properly have a plan in place for us to be able to serve their needs. So through these strategy sessions, we came up with a few different things. So first off was education. So we made sure that we took a very, very definitive approach to educating not only our clients, but cattlemen in general. I also own a few other veterinary practices across Alberta, and part of our producer meetings for that year was educating clients on the prescribing dispensing guidelines. I stood in direct fire of many producer groups, letting them know what the regulatory changes were going to be, what the existing VCPR guidelines were, and what veterinarians had to do in order for us to be able to have the privilege to both prescribe and dispense. And it was very positive. For the most part, there was just a lot of misinformation out there, a lot of miseducation as to what these guidelines actually were, what a VCPR actually meant. Even my mom called me fuming mad. My mom doesn't even have cows. She just reads the Western Producer. She called me fuming mad because she thought that every single foot rot, every single pneumonia that will ever happen on a farm would require a vet visit. That could be good for business, but I don't think we have enough veterinarians in Alberta to be able to put that level of resources out there into the world. So there was just a ton of misinformation, and really when it came down to it, people were very optimistic. They didn't really recognize that if they had a valid vet-client relationship, if they had a good relationship with their existing veterinarian, that nothing was going to change, that absolutely nothing was going to change. And I think by educating that kind of, I would call that upper echelon of, of cattle producers, then there was a lot of trickle down, a lot of talk within Alberta beef producers, a lot of talk in the producer groups, and it allowed us to be able to start our approach off on a good foot. So what we decided to do as a practice was first off to make sure that everybody within the practice knew exactly what the regulations were, and we knew exactly what our plan of approach was going to be within all of our practices. So what we did from a beef cattle perspective is we made sure that we had a valid vet-client relationship herd medical record in place. So we created a document. It's a 7-page document in our practice that really forced us to go through and know the nitty-gritty, to know what type of mineral these producers are using and what their vaccination strategies truly were and how they treat different disease processes, what their pasture movements are, how many cows that they have. All of the information we made sure that we recorded in a very formal document. In the past, this was based on just site visit reports, right? Parts of we're on farm and we're doing a preg test and we're talking about how the calving season went. We forced ourselves to be able to get all of the necessary information for us to have a super solid herd medical record in place. We created that for the cow-calf side, and we created that for the feedlot side. From there, what we also did is we made sure that we had accessible protocols for all of our clientele. Before that, anybody who was a consulting client or a feedlot client paying a consulting rate, they got all the protocols, right? They got these very detailed protocols, so they knew exactly when something got navel ill or got foot rot, they knew how to treat that. But we didn't have that for the rest of the people. We didn't have that for the new client walking into the door looking to use us as their new veterinarian. So we created a protocol book for them that we gave out for free. As part of our business model, we knew that either we had this kind of uphill battle of this farmer walking in wanting a bottle of penicillin, and we had never met him before, and kind of getting spit in our face, describing to him what needed to happen. And it just seemed like a stretch for us to decide as a business that we would charge for that initial consultation fee. So amongst all of our practices, what we made a concerted effort to do is we were going to take that onus on ourselves. We were going to invest the resources of our time into these producers first, and hopefully to establish a long-standing relationship. So we're hoping that fosters and that seeds into a relationship of 40 years or 80 years. So it seemed like a very sort of moot point to fight with somebody right off the bat. And they really appreciated that. And that was part of the education process, that we said, you know what, if you need to talk to a veterinarian and you want to become a client, come on down and we're going to sit with you. We're going to do a proper herd medical record. We're going to do a site visit, no charge. We're going to set you up with protocols, no charge. We're going to get an established vet-client relationship in place and everything that you're going to need as a base producer to really extend that olive branch, to start that line of communication with this clientele. Now that was the approach, but then it also took lots of execution within our practice as well. So that was the strategic plan. We created the documents, we created the resources, but we really had to have a forced and concerted effort within the team in order for us to be able to execute on that. We created spreadsheets, we created documents in order for everybody within the practice knew how to access that, to know how to access if a client has all of these things, all of these checklists. So we actually have an Excel spreadsheet for every farm that has had a site visit, herd medical record in place, that has got their updated 2019 cow-calf protocol books in place, that they knew the last time we were there with a site visit report. Everybody has access to that information. So if XYZ Farms walks up and needs a bottle of penicillin, anybody within our practice can access that to make sure that there is a herd medical record in place, there is a valid prescription in place, that all of the necessary stuff is in place. It was hard. It was a lot of work. It was really scary, but I'm super excited about what we were able to do. well, it took a lot of resources. It took a lot of time. It took a lot of poring over the prescribing dispensing guidelines. It was extremely difficult. There was a point where we were even thinking that maybe we should just hire a veterinarian to just stay in clinic full time, just to help us navigate around this. Now we're several months past that I guess kind of guideline, and I've had these interactions, or past that deadline, and I've had these interactions, and they've been extremely positive. Where a client will come in, just needing access to a 10-dose modified live vaccine, and we have it all in place. There's no discussion. There's no chasing him away. That we have this. Let's go sit down in the library with the next available veterinarian. We're going to set you up. We're going to help you. We're going to be part of this. And I feel really proud that our practice was able to, I guess, it's not that things had really changed, but all of these, this awareness has really forced us to do things the way that they should have always been done. And it's created great opportunities in terms of growing our business. It's created great opportunities for us to have these great relationships with new clients based off of this educational approach, based off of this really professional approach to how we grab a hold of these clients and walk with them in making sure that the VCPR is established. So that's kind of my story. And if you guys have any other questions, we will wait for the question period. So thank you.